I'm Judith Bowden, and I'm 60 years old. I think I was diagnosed, I was about 10 years ago, I think. Yeah. I get slightly mixed up with my dates. I think you tend to do about your illnesses, you don't always quite remember. But that's when I started, and I was, after they assessed that I needed medication, they put me on Sotalol. So I was put on Sotalol, but my arrhythmia continued. It didn't stop with the drugs. Some people it stops with the drugs. It didn't with me. It continued, and it was at the beginning it was intermittent, and then over time it became more consistent because of the medication didn't control it. So they decided I should have an ablation to try to control the arrhythmia. But they didn't. It didn't. So I waited for my ablation, and then whilst I was waiting for my ablation, I had a small stroke, and I went into hospital. And so I had a small stroke, and then they put me on warfarin. So I was on warfarin, and my rates of my INR was okay for warfarin. It was in the normal range. It wasn't outside the normal range when it was checked. And then during that time I had another stroke, a small stroke again, and I went back into the hospital, and they took me off warfarin. And it was when I was taken off warfarin, I had a next major stroke, which meant that I got a clot in my artery, and it caused quite a lot of problems. I was paralysed down my left side, and then I was treated for that. I had physio, occupational therapy and speech therapy, because they were concerned that my speech wasn't good enough when I had my stroke. And then they checked on they decided that the clot had come from my heart. The main problem was I had my strokes with it, which, they stopped it, and then it caused a problem. I didn't actually have any normal side effects. I was all right with it. You just have to be slightly careful, because I think at one point I had too much salad. They thought I'd had too much salad because you're not supposed to have lots of green vegetables. So you're not supposed to have cabbage, and they decided one time I was eating too much salad. Which I suppose isn't, everybody tells you you're supposed to have all these healthy vegetables, and I wasn't allowed to have it for a while, but it was all right. The other thing you have to be careful about is alcohol. You can drink as much as you like, but you have to drink it every night. I think there's a problem once you've had a stroke, you can have other strokes. And when I was in hospital, I met people who'd had quite a few strokes, and I've got a lot better. I can walk, I can go up and down stairs and things like that. But other people had more problems with their strokes, and they were in wheelchairs and not able to walk and not able to communicate. And I didn't want to have another stroke, so people around me didn't want me to have another stroke. They didn't want me to die either, particularly, because I'm still relatively young. So I think people expect you to die when you're a little bit older now. I discussed it with my own doctor, and I'd read it in the newspaper, just in the ordinary newspaper, and then when he talked about it, it sounded to me quite good, because he said I wouldn't have to have warfarin afterwards, which seemed quite good to me. When I was in hospital, I came across people who'd had more than one stroke and had other strokes, and had become quite disabled, and quite a lot of people were in wheelchairs. And I didn't want to have a wheelchair, so I didn't want another stroke. I suppose in some ways I'm quite young to have a stroke, so I could imagine the next few years continuing to have strokes, and I suppose eventually one of them would kill me. I was worried about someone going into my heart and doing something worse to me. Because I know doctors are supposed to be quite good, but you don't always believe them, do you? What's worried me still is I still have atrial fibrillation. There's nothing I can do about that. Because medication slows my heart down. So it's not as fast as it was before. But it's still there most of the time. Not all the time. Sometimes it's checked and it's not there. But most of the time it's there. I think going into hospital when you're on a planned treatment is a slight problem because you're not actually sure you're going to get in at the right time, but actually the Brompton's very good at it. So they spoke to me and they booked me in, and the SPR came in and told me that my doctor was all right. So I felt much more confident. I had the operation where they put it goes in your groin, and then they go into your heart with the thing. So you have a little bit of blood in your groin, but that was okay. And then they come and check on you quite quickly during the day, and the nurses check on you regularly, which is good, and the doctors come and check on you too. So it was good. The doctors and the nurses saw me quite frequently after the day. And I was able to talk to my family later in the day on the phone, and they were very pleased. I go to the gym regularly, and I can walk. I can't walk very quickly because of my arrhythmia. But I go to the gym and I go to Pilates, and I can go out and meet people for lunch quite happily. And I can go to the theatre as well on my own and meet friends there. So that's been good for me, to be able to do other things, to go back to more of a normal life that I'd hoped I'd have. You have this little thing in your heart, but you don't know it's there. I would recommend other people if I had it. Have it before you have your stroke. My recommendation, don't wait.